Hi everyone, I'm Pat Prokop with this Tropical Cyclone Nicole update for Monday, November 7th. Now, that area of developing tropical weather north of the Caribbean Sea and east-southeast of the Bahamas is moving slowly to the north-northwest and is slowly organizing and has been upgraded to a subtropical storm with the name Nicole. Nicole has 45-mile-per-hour winds that cover a large area, mainly north and east of its center. Satellite imagery is currently showing the system as a broad area of low pressure, with the center more like an elongated trough. However, as it moves toward the north and away from Hispaniola and Puerto Rico, and then toward the west, it'll move into an area of warm sea surface temperature and lighter upper level winds. And that'll be more favorable for tropical storm development and the possibility of it becoming a hurricane by sunset Wednesday. So with that being said, let's go and take a look at the computer models. So looking at the computer models, I'm at the global forecast system from the morning run on Monday, and there it shows the storm over to the east of the Bahamas at the moment. So let's go into the a little bit tighter view, the southeast United States right here. And let's see how this storm moves about, at least the forecast from the global forecast system. And this is the U.S. high resolution model. And it looks like this. The storm is getting ramped up pretty good. And by Thursday morning at sunrise, there it is near the coast of southeast Florida, just north of Miami, around Fort Lauderdale area, and very strong winds coming in off the Atlantic Ocean. The band of rain, according to this model, not moving on shore quite yet in the Georgia counties or South Carolina counties, but there could be a few, and there probably will be a few stray showers in advance of this system here. Now, let's go ahead and move a couple more hours in advance. Here we are at sunset on Thursday. Very heavy rains across southeastern Georgia. Heavy rains moving into coastal upper Georgia and South Carolina. Very strong winds continue across this region. And there is the storm now, moved across Florida into the Tampa area and St. Petersburg. And then the models have it turning more to the north at this stage. And here we are at sunset on Friday. It has the storm curving back to near Jacksonville, Florida, and just south of St. Simons and Brunswick. And then going northward, or continuing in time, it goes northeastward and then moves off the Georgia coast and starts moving off the South Carolina coast, but a lot of heavy rains pushing northward up into the eastern half of North Carolina, Virginia, the Delmarva Peninsula, into New Jersey and New York City as well. So this is going to be a far-stretching storm, not only just for Florida, Georgia, and South Carolina, but it looks like it's going to be going all the way up the coast. Let's take a look, just to take a quick peek at the northeast portion of the country. And there it is right there. And there you can see the coastal areas of all the mid-Atlantic coastal states into the New England states, expecting to see quite a bit of activity from this storm. And then it moves offshore. And then northwest winds behind that, bringing in some cold air into the northern portion of the country, cooler air for us. Let's go back to the southeast view and take a look at another model. Well, before we move on, let's take a look at the winds. I'm more concerned about the winds because that's going to be affecting our tides. We have a high tide. The moon is full tonight. By the way, full moon tonight with the eclipse to begin at, I think it's 4:09 in the morning. And here in the coastal areas of southeast United States, we should be able to see the moon before it sets go into totality. So the moon sets at about 6:30, but totality starts at about 5:30 or so, or 5 o'clock. So yeah, we should be able to see the red moon early tomorrow morning. Okay, let's get back to the subject here. Winds. Median sea level and 10-meter winds. That's about 30 feet above the surface. Basically surface winds. And there you can see the storm ramping up and the winds getting strong. Look at the fetch of winds coming in off the Atlantic Ocean. Strong northeast to east winds will be pushing and holding up the tide. So the tides are going to be very high. They're high to begin with at about 8.5 feet because of the new moon, because of the full moon. And this is going to drive it up probably at least 3 feet higher than that. So we're talking potential 11 plus feet tides coming in. This will be Tuesday afternoon. So the Tuesday evening tide is only 7.3 or 7.4. But as we go into the time sunrise Wednesday morning, very strong winds along the entire southeast coast in Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia. All these areas are going to be seeing very high elevated tides, so keep an eye on that. And here we're going to see most likely flooding tides in the Georgia and South Carolina area, and of course along the entire east coast of Florida. Moving advance in time as well, going into sunset on Wednesday. Very strong winds continue to push in and across the region, and that will also continue to elevate the tide. As we go into Thursday morning at sunrise, again, very strong fetch of east to northeasterly winds, and particularly from the center of the storm northward, expect to see some very high tides. So this is not going to be just a couple of hours. This is going to be a couple of days of very bad weather conditions across a large part of the southeast. This is not the fastest moving storm in the world. And going into, where are we now? Friday? That's 2 o'clock or 1 o'clock in the morning. We're on standard time now. Here we go at 7 o'clock Friday morning. The winds are shifting more to the southeast now, so that's going to help alleviate the elevated tides. But it's still, you have an easterly fetch of winds, and part of the vectors of the winds are still from the east. And of course, up into South Carolina and North Carolina, you got a very strong east-southeasterly wind flow there. Across the coast of Florida, the winds are more from the south to the north, so that should help knock down the tides. But the tides on the west coast of Florida are going to be elevated due to the backflow current here coming in from the west-northwest. And then let's go ahead and as we go into sunset on Friday, our winds become more southerly, so that'll stop the super high tide situation for us. All right, let's go into the let's see, we stay with the southeast. Let's go into the precipitation, because precipitation is going to be heavy. Total accumulated precipitation from the GFS model, and here we go. Let's go back in time, bring it forward. We can see heaviest rains across just about all of the Florida Peninsula and across coastal Georgia, coastal South Carolina, a large portion of North Carolina, and into eastern Virginia and the Delmarva Peninsula, southern New Jersey. So yeah, these areas here are purple. That's like 2 to 5 inches of rain in those areas there, and lesser amounts further inland. But we could use the rain, but we don't want it all at once, obviously. And as we go into time, there we have the rain is basically done by Friday night across our area. So let's go into another computer model. Let's look at the icon. This is the German model, and let's go into the standard mode here. And you know, this model actually did pretty good for Hurricane Ian several weeks ago. But looking at its forecast, and it has it basically following the same route as the GFS, and it cuts it across Florida around from just north of Miami over into just around the St. Petersburg, Tampa area, and then curves it north, but it stays to the west of the Georgia coast. Now that's bad news, because on this side of the storm, the eastern half of the storm right here, that's where in tropical situations you have the highest threat for isolated short spin-up tornadoes, and those tornadoes could have winds in excess of 100 miles an hour at times. So a very strong possibility of tornadoes in this area here, and squalls. And the squalls are brief periods of very heavy rains and strong gusty winds, and it's within these squalls is where you find these short-lived spin-up tornadoes. Let's see, going into this is what, sunrise Friday, and then it moves out of here by Saturday, but still some strong winds on the backside of this. The threat period will be Wednesday through Saturday morning for our area of coastal Georgia and South Carolina. The threats include very high to flooding high tides, particularly during the morning high tide cycles, but also for the evening tide cycles Thursday and possibly again on Friday. A tropical storm watch has been issued for the southern Georgia coast south of the Altamaha River, along with a storm surge watch. I would expect that this watch will be extended northward to include all of the Georgia coast and South Carolina coast later in the period. A hurricane watch has also been issued for the east coast of Florida from near Cape Canaveral southward to around Miami. A high surf will generate moderate to heavy beach erosion throughout this period. There will be a threat for very heavy rains Thursday and Friday, particularly in the coastal counties, with lesser amounts further inland. There will also be a threat for damaging winds. I think this is a fairly high threat. And tornadoes, particularly Thursday and Friday over the eastern half of the state of Georgia and most of South Carolina, and of course northern portions of Florida. Keep in mind, this system is still several days out, and variations in the forecast path will most likely occur. It's important that you do not focus on the exact track of Nicole, since it is expected to be a rather large and broad storm with hazards extending well to the north of the center and outside of that cone. And this will affect much of the Florida Peninsula, Georgia, and South Carolina, extending northward into North Carolina by the end of the week. But the bottom line is to stay vigilant and be prepared. And part of that preparation will be to expect tree damage, power outage, and coastal flooding, particularly Thursday night and Friday. If you like this video, please hit the like button, and if you haven't already subscribed, please consider doing so. You can follow me also on my Weather and Nature Facebook page at Pat Prokop's Weather and Nature page, and on my Twitter account at Pat of Savannah, and on my website, which I update constantly during times like this, savannahpat.name. On the website, I will also have live radars showing the storm and following it as it moves along the coastal areas of Florida and into Georgia and South Carolina. And I'll also have links to the National Hurricane Center and the National Weather Service. I have all the links to my social media accounts below in the description box. And please continue to monitor this storm, particularly if you are in the southeast United States. Until next time, see you right here on YouTube.